Starting off at number 22, the worst win condition in the game is the Three Musketeers, and interestingly enough, this would probably be the only win condition on this list where you can make the argument that it's not even a win condition, which I guess really goes to show how bad it is. It's just very inconsistent. You could make it work with the Battle Ram or the Royal Hogs, so it essentially requires a secondary win condition. It's just way too vulnerable to spells, too expensive, and not versatile enough. The second worst win condition in the game is going to be the Golem. It is also just too expensive, kind of like the Three Musketeers at 8 Elixir. It's really difficult to break through a lot of the buildings in the game, and you're just better off running other tanks in the game like the Lava Hound, the Giant, and even the Electro Giant, which just provide more value in a lot of situations. The next is going to be the Ram Rider. She used to be a lot better, but ever since they nerfed how long it takes for her to charge, now it takes longer. She has been significantly worse, and she's seen a lot less inside of P.E.K.K.A. and Mega Knight decks, and with all the stuns and buildings in the game, it can be difficult to get her to reach the tower, but you can use her if you really want to inside of some bridge spam decks. At number 19, we got the Elixir Golem. Oh my goodness, is this one a toxic win condition? As you guys know, it can be very strong, especially with things like the Goblin Curse and the Rage, the Night Witch, the Goblin Machine, but it's very niche decks. And if you have splash for it, maybe something like a bomb tower or even an executioner, definitely going to be easy to stop. So it's matchup dependent and it's a little bit too situational. The next is going to be the Electro Giant. Now, don't get me wrong, he's definitely a little bit better than the Golem, but again, the problem is he's pretty easy to stop with buildings. He also requires very specific synergies with the Tornado and other support cards, so he's not extremely versatile with the exception of a couple different decks, which is why I think he's a below average win condition. At number 17, we got the Royal Hogs. These used to be so much better, but so many things in the Royal Hog cycle deck got nerfed, like the Evo Skeletons, the Evo Ice Spirit, the Evo Cannon. So a lot less people are using that deck, and also inside of Recruits, a lot of people prefer running the Evolved Skeleton Barrel, the Evolved Wall Breakers, but don't get me wrong, the Royal Hogs are a very good win condition, especially if you don't run into a Bomb Tower or a Fireball. For the win conditions within Evo, I'm going to rank them based on their Evo form because it's always better to use the Evolution. The standard Battle Ram without the Evo you could use if you really want to, but the Evolution is definitely where it's at, and everyone using it is using the Evolution because it's so much more annoying to stop when you have the Evolved Barbarians, which is why you commonly see it paired with the P.E.K.K.A., but you also see some people running it with the Evolved Lumberjack. Of course, the downside of it, though, is going to be stuns and buildings, so it's definitely not completely unstoppable and has its fair share of counters, which is why I do consider it a slightly below average win condition. The Suspicious Bush. This used to be the worst win condition in the game, but recently there's been a log bait spam deck with the Evo Dark Goblin that has just been absolutely obnoxious that has the Suspicious Bush in it, and it's great for baiting out spells, and if you do ignore it, it deals so much damage for only 2 elixir, but of course it's very vulnerable to spells and buildings, so you're often going to need to pair it with other secondary win conditions. Spoiler alert, but this is actually the only win condition where you are better off running the standard version over the Evolution, which is actually why I advise you guys to run the standard Goblin Drill, because the Evolution provides pretty much no more value, and you're better off pairing the regular drill with other evolutions, like maybe the Evo Tesla or the Evolved Ice Spirit. For example, the regular drill is going to be around an average win condition. I think there's a lot of better things, but there's a lot of worse things, and it's very dependent on what spells and also what support cards your opponent has, because if they have a good drill counter like a Dark Prince or a Valkyrie, it can sometimes seem impossible to get damage, but if they don't have that in their deck, then it can seem really broken. Next up, we have the Lava Hound. I don't think it's an outstanding win condition on its own. It requires secondary win conditions, either the Balloon, where it's most commonly seen, or the Miner. You could also use Miner and Balloon in the same Lava Hound deck, but I think overall it's pretty matchup dependent and depends on how many air counters that your opponent has. and it can be tricky and awkward to play in some situations, but if your opponent doesn't have a lot of air counters, then it can be very good, which is why I think it's kind of an average win condition. At number 12, we got the Evolved Goblin Barrel. This used to be one of the most broken evolutions, but recently they nerfed the decoy goblin damage by around 25%, which has definitely negatively impacted the card by quite a lot. You're still going to definitely want to use the Evo over the standard barrel, but now a lot of people are preferring to use things like the Evolved Skeleton Barrel or the Evolved Wall Breakers, which have proven to be a bit more consistent of a win condition than the Evolved Goblin Barrel. Next, we got the Evolved Goblin Giant. Ever since they nerfed the frequency of the Goblin spawn, it has been a bit worse, and I think it's pretty much one of the most average win conditions in the game. Sparky isn't really in the best spot, so Evo Gob Giant Sparky isn't very good, but it is going to be very good with the Evolved P.E.K.K.A. in that Chef deck. That is where it really shines, or Prince Spam, you can make it work as well, but it definitely can be countered pretty easily by buildings. And I actually think the regular Giant is ever so slightly better than the Evolved Goblin Giant, because recently the regular Giant has been played quite a bit with the Goblin Machine Evo Inferno Drag in that toxic spam deck, sometimes seen with the Boss Bandit too, and also, of course, Giant Graveyard is a very OP combination that we've seen a lot more of recently with the addition of the Evolved Witch, but once again, building's going to stop it pretty easily, and there are definitely some win conditions more consistent than it. At number 9, we got the Evolved Royal Giant. He's been toned down slightly with the recent nerf the Monk got, and also with the addition of the Evolved Inferno Dragon, which of course is a very good counter to him, but he still remains to be a very consistent win condition with strong support cards like the Fisherman, for example, which goes so well with him. And if you aren't against an air deck, you can win and outplay just about any matchup, and that knockback ability of the evolution can be really clutch, especially on top of things like the mini P.E.K.K.A. and the Knight. At number 8, we got the Evolved Mortar. This has actually made a pretty big comeback recently because it was struggling for a while, but with the addition of the Evolved Skeleton Barrel, which pairs so well with the Evo Mortar, it has helped revive it. So now you see people oftentimes running those two evolutions in the same deck, and having that additional goblin shooting definitely gives you way more firepower than the standard Mortar, which is why pretty much everyone running Mortar has that Evo version. And even defensive Mortar can be very valuable in some situations too. When you have a push coming in that you got to deal with, that goblin coming out can provide you a lot of value defensively as well. At number 7, we got the Expo. I would have never expected that in 2025 Expo was going to make a big comeback, but it has finished number 1 in the world twice in the last few months. Some things that have helped it out, of course, are the Evolved Tesla buff, which pairs very well with the Expo. Also, the Arrows nerf, which is an indirect buff to the Evolved Archers, which, of course, pair very well with the Expo. And if you know how to play it perfectly, you are definitely guaranteed to have a lot of success, because there are very few things in this game that hard counter Expo, which is why a lot of Expo players have been having a lot of success recently. At number 6, we got the Hog Rider. He is just such a versatile win condition, and it really doesn't matter what meta it is, you can always make him work. Whether it's standard 2.6, Hog X NATO, Hog EQ, there's definitely a Hog deck for you if you want to play it. The EQ version especially tends to be the strongest because it allows you to break through those pesky buildings that end up countering him. Whether it's something like the Evolved Cannon, you're going to be able to get through it a lot easier when you do have that Earthquake, and he just tends to get a lot of value for only 4 Elixir. Getting into our top 5 now, in my opinion, the Graveyard is even stronger than it was before, because now we have the Evolved Inferno Dragon, which has really helped revive Graveyard Freeze, because that's a very OP combination, but also the Evolved Witch has really helped Graveyard as well, because it's a perfect support card for the graveyard, and with the Goblin Hut rework, that also pairs very well with the graveyard too, which is why we've seen a big revive in graveyard recently. Even though it hasn't been in typical Splash Shard decks, it's been in so many other things, making it a very versatile win condition and difficult to deal with if you don't have the proper responses. At number 4, we got the Balloon. Not just inside of Lava decks. Of course, Lava Loon, everyone knows that's a very solid combination. It's been around for many, many years, pretty much ever since the start of the game. The Loon has always been one of the most consistent win conditions, but recently, I think it has been even better because of the Ice Golem buff. We've seen so many people recently run Loon Cycle with the Ice Golem, which can be very difficult to stop because even when you have the correct counters, you can outcycle your opponent pretty easily. You can also run things like Lumber Loon Freeze, of course, you can make it work, and things like Evo Lumberjack Balloon can be a very solid combination. So a lot of options with the Balloon. Now in the top 3, we got the Miner. Now, regardless of if you make the argument if this is a secondary win condition, which of course it could be in a lot of different decks, we can't argue the fact that he is for sure one of the most consistent and reliable win conditions in the game. And there's actually a lot of decks where he's the primary win condition. For example, I would make the argument that in a lot of Miner Poison and Miner Rocket decks, he's basically the main win condition with the spells he's paired in. But then, of course, inside of a Lava deck, or maybe with the Skeleton Barrel or the Wall Breakers, you could say he's a secondary win condition. But a lot of decks nowadays tend to have 2 win conditions regardless. And I just think with how many people have success with the Miner every single season, and usually when we look at the top 10 finishers, there's always at least 2, 3, 4, 5 people having the Miner. It has just really stood the test of time, and it is just so reliable for getting chip damage on your opponent's tower. At number 2, we got the Evolved Wall Breakers. Now, I want to make it very clear, you definitely can run the regular Wall Breakers. I would actually say the regular Wall Breakers would be in the top 10 in this list, but going off of what I said with the Evos, you definitely do want to run the Evolved Wall Breakers because they're basically even more broken than the regular Wall Breakers. And defensively even, if we want to basically get away from the win condition aspect, defensively you can blow up a large push your opponent is going in for, so you have that other utility of them. But just on offense, my goodness, like if they connect, you're dealing so much damage to your opponent's tower, and they can be so difficult to stop if you don't have the correct cycle. You know, you're pretty much always going to get a negative trade on top of them. They're also extremely versatile. You can run them with the Miner, of course. You can use them with the Recruits. They're very good with the new broken Skeleton Barrel, of course. You can just mix and match them with so many different things. Mega Knight as well. I forgot if I mentioned that. They just fit very well in a lot of different decks, and I think they're very, very valuable for only 2 Elixir. Lastly, guys, this thing just came out, but in my opinion, it is for sure the strongest win condition in the game. It has also proven to be the best evolution in the game, too, in my opinion, at the moment. Let's start with how versatile it is. I mean, you can run it in Recruits, you can run it with Miner, you can run it with the Goblin Drill. If you want, you can run it inside of bait decks with the Goblin Barrel, maybe something like a Goblin Hut, the Mega Knight. I mean, you name it. You can run this thing in so many different decks. Pretty much every single cycle deck and baity deck you want to. I mean, Beatdown might be the one thing you can't run it in, right? And then I was talking about the death damage aspect of the Evo Wall Breakers. This is on another level. You can defensively, too, stop some crazy pushes, especially air pushes with this thing, because it's like blowing up on top of everything. And if your opponent does not have a building, they're basically screwed against this card. And even if they do have a building, you oftentimes can outcycle it, maybe bait out their building with something else, and still end up getting a ton of value with it. So I would for sure say this is the best win condition in the game. I would not be surprised if this ends up getting a nerf in the next set of balance changes. Only time will tell. If you guys enjoyed the video, be sure to give it a like and subscribe if you guys are not subscribed already. You can use creator code BOSS to support me in any Supercell game. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think of this list. What would you guys change? And thanks again. Until next time, guys.